Hello, flower friends. If you're not a fan of mums already, it's probably because you're thinking of those weird gold or maroon dome-shaped potted mums that you see at every big box store. The mums we're using today are not those. Totally different story. Today, I'm going to show you the most beautiful heritage mums, and I'm going to show you how versatile they are and why they deserve a place in every fall design. My name's Ellen Frost. I'm building a community of flower nerds online at Flowermore. You can check it out on my website, ellenfrost.com. And also subscribe to my free weekly newsletter, Flower Nerd. There's a link in the description. So let's get started celebrating heritage mums. Heritage mums are my favorite fall flower. I know that there is a debate whether or not dahlias or mums are better, and I know most people choose dahlias, but I am a fan of mums. So much so that I pulled out my favorite vase from home to design with today. This is a handmade vase by a potter here in Baltimore. Honestly, it's the perfect size for every arrangement. This is a side note from mums. This is actually the perfect size for just a normal arrangement that you have on your dining room table. Great shape and about a 5-inch opening, maybe a 4.5-inch opening. All right, so let me tell you about mums. Heritage mums or heirloom mums. It means mums that have been saved in private collections and shared for decades, either through cuttings, mostly through cuttings. And they're mums that are used a lot in like mum shows, so showing mums competitively. This is my favorite one this week. You can see how long the stems are, amazing. You can see what beautiful color they have. This is actually like a sunset in one color. And like a lot of the mums, I'm not really sure what the name is because I asked the grower and she wasn't sure either. That is one of the things with heritage or heirloom mums, is that these mums have been kept by private people, like in their gardens for decades. And while we know the names of some of them, we don't know the names of all of them. So I'm going to show you some of my favorites today. This one I do know the name of. This is Mount Asama. And in the world of heritage or heirloom mums, there are 13 categorizations. And this one, Mount Asama, this is called an incurve. So what that means is that you can see that the petals are actually curving upwards. And they're wild looking. They're kind of like tentacles. They're kind of twirly. They have all these little curls on them. These are mums that every customer who comes into my shop asks about. They want to know more about. They are just so beautiful. Another favorite that I have here today, these are Sheffield mums, and these are daisy mums. So in that categorization, these are daisy mums. In the fall, everything sort of gets dusty or antique-y, and the Sheffield mums have this really light pink peachy color with this nice yellow center. This is Peter Magnus, and I love this one because these are called cascade mums. This is the category of them. They're these little tiny mums that they say are better cascading. I've never actually seen them cascading. So instead, you have some branches, and I don't know, the color is just so perfect. It's this like dusty lilac-y violet. And there's another cascade one that I'll show you here. This is bronze fleece, and it has the same shape and the same little tiny cute flowers, but in sort of a brown, golden brown color. One more I want to show you before I get started designing. This one is called whirlaway. And why I love this one so much is because this is a spoon chrysanthemum, and you can see that it is noticeably different than the others because it has these quilled petals. And quilled petals are petals that are tubular, so they look totally different than, if you take this one, you can see that the petals are totally different. And tubular petals are pretty rare in nature. There's not a lot of flowers that have tubular petals. If you have read my newsletter or followed along for a while, one of my Rudbeckias that I love, Henry Eilers, that also has these quilled petals. So any of the spoon mums have these quilled petals, which make a really interesting texture and, interesting shape in design. Let me get started with a really simple design. This is just a way to celebrate all the different sizes and shapes of mums that we have here today. And you can see that the color palette is really mixed, a mixed fall palette, but everything is sort of antique-y, dusty. And for that reason, I'm going to use, for my foliage, I'm going to use some of this eucalyptus, which has a really dusty color to it. So I'm not using any mechanic. A mechanic would be something I put inside of the vase to hold the flowers in place. And I'm cleaning my stems so that I don't have any leaves inside the vase. All right, so I'm just making a little bit of a shape here with my eucalyptus. But today I'm just going to be using mums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with my focal mums, the things that are the largest and take up the most room. So I'm going to use these, which, as I said before, I'm not sure the name, but they have this like pinky peach gold, and I'm actually going to use this as the base of my color palette too. So this has got a lot of the colors that are in these mums here. This is going to be sort of the bridge flower between all of these colors. So when I'm designing, I'm thinking about keeping my design about 1.5 times the height of my vase. So it's not going to be crazy tall, but this does give me a nice full shape of a design. And they're pretty branchy. You can see that a lot of these have like a couple blooms on them. I'm just going to leave them on there today. This is a casual arrangement, something that you would have at home, not something that's going to take you, 2 hours to overthink. This is just really celebrating the flowers of the season today. All right, so I'm just going to start with those, and then I have a couple others that are sort of large blooms. I'm going to put those in next. And this is more of a mauvey pink, but look how perfectly those match. And the shape is a little bit different. You've got a little bit like pointier stems on these. So again, I've got nothing holding these stems in place inside the vase. So as I'm putting them in, they are going to fall to the side, and you might feel like a little nervous about this big hole in the middle, but don't freak out, because one, we can always put like another piece of foliage in the middle, but we are going to fill in that middle as we go. It's just that in the beginning, you're going to have a lot of space in the middle here. If you are new to this type of mum, you might be thinking like, where do I get these? Because I haven't actually seen those a lot of places. These are really grown by specialty cut flower growers. So the best thing to do is try to search out a farmer that's near you or a florist that sources local flowers. There's 2 resources that I can suggest. One is you can go to localflowers.org. That is the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers directory. And what you can do is just type in your address or your zip code, and it will give you flower farmers that are near you in your region. You can also do that on slowflowers.com. They also have a directory in there that will give you farmers and florists that use local flowers. All right, so I'm adding these Mount Asama. I'm just keeping them nice and long, giving them a fresh cut so that they take up water. The thing about these mums too is that they're so big, the blooms are so big, you want to make sure that they have plenty of room. These are going to continue to open in the vase, so I don't want to crowd them or make them feel like they don't have enough room. And I'm making it pretty symmetrical, just sort of going around in a circle. This one is a little heavy. I'm going to trim it a little bit. I want to keep all these little buds on because they're so cute, but I don't want it to be too heavy. All right, now that I have sort of these larger blooms in, I'm going to fill in with some of the smaller blooms. I'm going to start with this Peter Magnus. Like I said, this is one of my favorites. I will trim it up just a little bit so that it doesn't have too many of these unopened blooms on them. I like those, but I don't need a ton of them. And what I'm going to do is start using this both high and low as a way to fill in some of the space between these large blooms. I'll tell you something else. You can see that these are really branchy. And there's two ways that growers sort of handle mums in the field. You can either leave them branchy, which most of them will be like this. They'll have all these little buds, which I know it's sad to just break them off, but that's where we are. Or there is something called disbudding, which means that partway through the growing process, a grower will come in, for instance, will come in and cut off all of these side shoots, allowing there just to be one large bloom on the stem. And this gives you a much bigger stem. It gives you, like, that stem is much stronger. But most growers, I would say, don't take the time, have the time, feel like they can command a price that would make disbudding worth it for them. Of course, as a florist, I love disbuds. I love like a single, easy, big bloom. But mostly you're going to get these sort of branchy. So they can get tangly, which was my point, is that when you have these really branchy stems, they can start to get tangly in your bucket or in your vase. So you just have to be careful when you're pulling them out. You can see here, I've got like a tangle here. And I'm trying to keep them like a single stem inside the vase because I don't want to stick it in and then pull it out and then pull a bunch of stuff out with it. And as I'm putting them in, I'm putting some kind of lower in the design so that if you're sitting at a table looking at these, you can see these. It's not just all the blooms are up here at eye level. I want to have some all throughout. And I am popping these purple Peter Magnus up a little bit so that you can really see them and they don't get lost. We have been having a debate inside my Flower More community, my online community, about whether people are Team Dahlia or Team Mum. And within the community, it's pretty split. People like both of them. But when I did an Instagram poll to ask whether or not people were Team Dahlia or Team Mum, most people said Team Dahlia, which I do think, this is my own analysis, is that's because they have not had a chance to really use these mums very much. Like I said, they're not as readily available. So I think once people try them out, they will find that they are just so great. The other thing about them, certainly in comparison to dahlias, is that they have a much longer vase life. Mums can last in the vase for up to like 2 weeks, sometimes even more. And, you know, especially if you're comparing to a dinner plate dahlia or a decorative dahlia that doesn't have a very long vase life. I mean, I always use Cafe au lait as the example. Cafe au lait is a beautiful dahlia, but its vase life is like hardly anything at all. 2 days maybe, where you could use a chrysanthemum in the same color palette. Like there's one called Seaton's J'adore that looks a lot like a Cafe au lait dahlia. However, it can last, like I said, 2 weeks in the vase. So I am definitely Team Mum. That's not to say that I don't love dahlias. I just feel like mums give me a lot more versatility and a lot more vase life, especially for single orders. They're just for people who are looking for flowers that are going to give them a long vase life. All right, so I'm almost done. Like, look you don't even really need that much. Like I said, you don't need a ton of flowers. You don't need to go crazy. This is just a simple arrangement. I'm just going to fill in with a few more of these little whirlaways down here. This color palette is so good. I'm going to add a couple of these bronze fleece. If it were up to me, I would just, in the fall, make all of my arrangements mono-botanical, meaning just one type of flower. I would just use all of these mums. I'm going to add a tiny bit more eucalyptus just to give this a little height right here. So again, just cleaning it off. This is what I mean about the stems being very sticky. I feel like I'm using like all my strength to... And if you're not sure where to cut your flowers or your foliage for height, you can always just like prop it up next to your design and say, is this where I want it to be? And then cut it a little bit, you know, to fit. Lastly, I'm just looking at the edge of my design. I like to make sure that the edge, I always say soften the edge. I heard my friend Ian, who's a floral designer, the other day say celebrate the edge. And what that means is I just want to make sure that this edge doesn't look too messy or unfinished, and that there's not a lot of like ugly stems showing as you're looking at it at eye length. So I might just tuck in a couple pieces of eucalyptus, or I can cut a couple of mums short so that they fill in right around the edge. Going to add a couple more pieces here to soften that edge. There you have it. This is a mono botanical all mum arrangement with just a little bit of eucalyptus as foliage. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. You can also subscribe to my free weekly newsletter, Flower Nerd. There's a link in the description. And if you want to tell me about your experience with heirloom or heritage mums, I'd love to hear from you in the comments.